In this video, we are going to see nationalism in India. That is the third chapter of history. This chapter starts whatever happened after the First World War. That is after 1918. That was the end of the First World War. So we will see what was the impact of First World War on India. So First World War created a new economic and political situation in India. Economically, the people were affected, and politically, there was a division among the people. Second point is that many more countries started to invest more money on defense. So the defense expenditure was multiplied just after the First World War. Third point is that increased the custom duties and introduced the income tax. That is the third impact of First World War. Then increased the prices of commodities. Each and a single item, everyday items, their prices were increased. Then next point is that forced recruitment to the army. Even the people, those who are working in the field, were invited to join the army, and forcibly they were joined with the army. Then what happened? Crop failed in India once, and famine took place in India, and lakhs of people died. This was after the First World War. Then due to that spread of epidemic means that just like a corona disease, at that time influenza broke out, and many people were killed due to this epidemic. So what were the impact of First World War in India? The first point you have to understand, they have created a new economic and political situation in India. First point. Second one, defense expenditure increased in India. Third point, custom duties were increased and income taxes were introduced. Then increased prices of the commodities. Then forced recruitment to the army. Then crop failure and famine took place. Thousands of people died. Then last point is that spread of epidemic killing millions of people. So these were the impact of First World War on India. This is a question answer also you have to by heart. Okay, next part we are going to see what happened. You know that Gandhiji reached India after the First World War and started to mingle with the common people and understand their problems. According to that, he introduced a new method. What was the new method is called? That was called Satyagraha. The noble method introduced by Gandhiji in India to fight against Britishers is called Satyagraha. Now I am telling another point. What do you mean by Satyagraha? An important part of this lesson. What do you mean by Satyagraha? So according to Gandhiji, Satyagraha is a noble method that where the oppressed, the people, they search for truth, and we compel the oppressor to see the truth. And according to Gandhiji, if one who is if a satyagrahi, if he is fight against injustice, then he doesn't want any physical force to fight the oppressor. Ultimately, the oppressor will lose and oppressed will succeed. Truth alone triumphs. That was a point Gandhiji explained very well. Truth alone triumphs means ultimately the success will be for truth. So a satyagrahi finds truth, and he is fighting against injustice. And if we are sure, if the oppressor is sure that we are fighting against the injustice, ultimately the success will be of oppressed, means the people. Now, who is the oppressed here? Oppressed means the people, Indian people. Who is the oppressor? The Britishers. So the oppressor, that is the local people, were fighting against injustice. Whatever may be the new laws created by Britishers, it was a oppressed law for Indians. So Gandhiji himself started his Satyagraha movements in India. Three experiments he had done. One was in 1916, that was in Champaran of Bihar. He fought against oppressive plantation system in 1916 in Champaran. Second one is 1917 in Kheda of Gujarat. He had an organized Satyagraha movement. And third one is 1918 in Ahmedabad. Again, amidst of cotton mill workers, he participated in this Satyagraha movement. So which were the places Gandhiji participated in Satyagraha movements? 1916, Champaran, 1917, Kheda, and 1918, Ahmedabad. So these were the three Satyagraha movements organized by Gandhiji after returning back to India from South Africa. So now the Britishers, they introduced a new act that was called Rowlatt Act. That was of in 1919. Now, what do you mean by Rowlatt Act? According to the Rowlatt Act, the Britishers had a freedom to arrest any Indian and put behind the bars for 2 years without any trial. What do you mean by trial? Trial means court, no judge or no lawyer, nothing will be there. If you are arrested, you are behind the bars for 2 years. That was a special power given to Britishers, East India Company in India, to arrest any Indian people. So Gandhiji was disliked this movement. He wanted to withdraw Britishers to withdraw the present law or Rowlatt Act. So first one, what was that? What do you mean by Rowlatt Act? That was passed by the Imperial Legislative Council of Britain for opposition people of India. Already I told you, in order to arrest the people, those who were engaged in the political activities, and put them behind the bars continuously for 2 years without any trial. So it was totally to control the political activities of India. So Gandhiji took a non-violent civil disobedience movement against this act. So he wanted to have a hartal on that. He started the civil disobedience movement with a hartal. Massive strikes and shutdowns and hartals were taking place. British administration started to fear that. Local Amritsar leaders were arrested and Gandhiji stopped from entering Delhi. These were the impact. So when the hartal started, shutdown started, strike started, the Britishers started to fear. And Gandhiji was prohibited from entering the Delhi. So at that time, who was the commander? General Dyer was the commander. And on a Vaishagi day of 1919, April 13, the date is April 13, the people were participating in a fair in Amritsar, Jallianwala Bagh. There, the people, unaware of this martial law enacted in Amritsar, people gathered there in Jallianwala Bagh. People reached from faraway places. They were unaware of the martial law. Martial law means the command was already, the control was given to the army. Everything was under the control of the army. General Dyer with his men entered the Jallianwala Bagh and blocked the exit point. Exit means door. Only one door was that there, and it was locked, and started firing on the people. Thousands of people were killed there in Amritsar. So by looking at that, Gandhiji withdrew the civil disobedience movement for the first time. When he withdrew it, Gandhiji wanted to new strategy he wanted to create. Everywhere, whenever nationalism came up, Gandhiji had a problem. What was the problem? The problem was that Hindu-Muslim communities were totally different. Always Gandhiji searched how to bring them all together, Muslims and Hindus. Then there was an issue of Khalifa. Turkey, Ottoman Empire was successful in defeating the Turkey Sultan, and the Muslim Empire. The spiritual leader was called Khalifa, and the Britishers wanted to withdraw the powers of Khalifa, and all the Muslim communities all throughout the world were not in favor of that. They wanted to protect Khalifa. So in India also they formed a Khilafat committee. Brothers Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali brothers, under the leadership of these two brothers, Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali, they formed the Khilafat committee in Bombay, and they requested Gandhiji to join them to protest against Britishers in order to protect the powers of Khalifa. So Gandhiji saw an opportunity here to unite Hindus and Muslims and boycott the Roll Act, and all. Gandhiji also were willing to participate in the Khilafat agitation. So joined with the Muslims and have a fight against the Britishers again in order to protect the Khalifa. And in India, Gandhiji wanted to have a non-cooperation movement. Now, what do you mean by non-cooperation movement? Non-cooperation means not to cooperate with the Britishers, whatever may be. Surrender the government titles. The government were given different awards to different people. We surrendered them back at that time. Then boycott the civil services, army, police, courts, legislative councils, and schools. The teachers boycotted the British schools. Even the courts, the lawyers were boycotted the courts, and the civil services were boycotted. Then boycott of foreign goods. Very important point is that foreign goods were boycotted by Indian people. If government uses repressive measures, civil disobedience campaign to be launched. If government is blocking this or suppressive methods were used, then Gandhiji wanted to launch civil disobedience movement again. Mobilize the popular support. Gandhiji wanted to mobilize the popular support through the non-cooperation method. So what were the steps taken by the non-cooperation movement? First one, surrender the government title. Second one, boycott the civil services, army, police, courts, legislative councils, and schools. Third one, boycott of the foreign goods. Then through these methods, Gandhiji wanted to have a mass support from the people. So from this one also, there was a problem within the Congress. As I said, there was a problem between Muslims and Hindus. And within the Congress party itself, there were different strands. Different people were there. And they wanted to have different methods of agitation, protest against the Britishers. One is within the Congress, oppose the boycott council elections. What do you mean by council elections? We were having provincial legislative assemblies. In class 9, you have already studied that there were two types of states in India. One is princely states. Second one is provincial governments. We were having different provinces in India. Just like Madras province, Central province, Mumbai province, Lahore province, Calcutta province, Punjab province. These kind of provinces were in, and each province had a government. Just like we are having the governments in the state governments in India now at present. At that time, provinces were there, and provincial governments were called provincial legislatures. So some people were not they were not willing to boycott the provincial elections. There were elections to government. Many people were not willing to boycott that because they also had a chance to get elected to the government. Then some people had a fear of violence. Again, if we boycott these things, there was a fear of violence. No consensus between supporters and opponents of the movement. Just like Gandhiji and some people were there. Subhash Chandra Bose and Motilal Nehru was there. These kind of people were totally against. What was the idea of Gandhiji was not agreed with these people. So some movement, different strands were there, and even they were formed another political party within the party, liberals or the rationals, where they were all different groups of within the Congress party. So at last, again, Nagpur section of Congress in 1920. So 1920 Congress meeting was held in Nagpur, and they finalized, they agreed on the non-cooperation movement. Then Gandhiji launched the non-cooperation movement in the towns, in the countryside, and the plantations. We have different examples. The Swaraj plantations in the Andhra Pradesh, the hills of Andhra Pradesh, and the tribal people of Assam or the plantation workers of Assam all participated in the movement. The beginning, there was a mass participation was there in the movement, the middle class participation, schools, colleges, and the courts, picketing the liquor shop and harmed the colonial economy, everything was there. But what happened? This khadi was expensive, which poor people could not afford. Long time they could not boycott the foreign goods. Why? Because the Indian made khadi was costly. The poor people could not afford it. So after some time, they were forcibly compelled to purchase the foreign goods. Absence of alternative Indian system. Suppose if we are boycotting the British schools, at least there should have been Indian schools that the Indian people can go and students can go and study there. But that was lacking. Students, teachers, lawyers joined back to their respective places. That was the reason. The first time when the non-cooperation movement was launched, it was not successful. There was no alternative choices in front of the Indians. There were different people, just like Baba Ramchandra, Alluri Sidaram Raju. All these people were the leaders of this movement. They were all active participations. Swaraj also, they had done the plantations. Migration Act, the Britishers were formed, and the people, once they were in a plantation, they were not easily given permission to go back to their respective villages. So that was also a problem. If told they want to get the leave application is not sanctioned. That means they are not allowed to go their home. So once you are in a plantation, you are not allowed to go back. So that was a failure of that movement. So now Gandhiji understood that non-cooperation movement will not work out. There were many clashes between plantations or the tribal people, just like in the Andhra Pradesh, Kanduguri, Veeraslingam. These people were all leading the guerrilla warfare and all, but everywhere there was violence. By looking at the violence, Gandhiji withdrew the non-cooperation movement. Now again, Gandhiji wanted to launch civil disobedience movement. Now, what do you mean by civil disobedience movement? Civil disobedience movement means you are disobeying all the rules formed by the Britishers. If you are restricted from entering the forest, you are forcefully going into the forest. You are collecting the forest products. That is called the civil disobedience movement. Disobedience, that means you are disobeying the rules of the Britishers. Withdrawal on non-cooperation movement as it turned violence. Within Congress, many argued return to politics and contest the provincial elections. C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru they have found Swaraj Party. Remember that? Who found the Swaraj Party? C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru together formed the Swaraj Party. Others argued different types of agitations we require. Now, Britishers, looking at the political situation in India turning violence, the Britishers wanted to send a commission to India to study again what is the situation of India and what type of government can be formed in India. In order to study that, British government sent a commission to India. That commission was led by Sir Simon, and that is why it was known as Simon Commission. And Indians were boycotting the Simon Commission. Why? The reason is that there was not a single Indian member in the Simon Commission. And that is why Indians boycotted the Simon Commission. What is the reason Indians boycotted the Simon Commission? Because there was no Indian in the Simon Commission. So it is a law wanted to make on India and there was no Indian. Then what is the sense of that? So Gandhiji found that it is something wrong in that. So Gandhiji said we will boycott the Simon Commission. Then Britishers put a tax on salt that also was disliked by Gandhiji. Lord Irwin, he was the viceroy at that time. Gandhiji sent a letter to viceroy. There were 11 demands. One was that remove tax on salt, because salt was used by every people. Even if he is poor or rich, they wanted to have the salt. It is a very important ingredient in the Indian food. So the tax on salt was a sin according to Gandhiji. So Gandhiji demanded that you had to withdraw the tax on salt. So when the Irwin was resistant, he was not ready to withdraw the tax. Then Gandhiji undertook the Dandi March. It was called Salt to March. That was in 1930. From Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi, the coastal region, he went on foot. He produced salt by boiling the sea water. So that was the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. Calling of civil disobedience movement, arrest of Congress leaders like Abdul Ghaffar Khan and other Nehru. Or when Gandhiji returned from Britain, he had gone for the round table conference in Britain. When he returned, many Congress leaders were arrested and put them behind the bars. And the Congress itself was called an illegal party. They had no freedom. So Gandhiji undertook the civil disobedience movement. Again, it was turning on violent. So when Gandhiji relaunched the civil disobedience movement, the people were unwilling to participate in the movement because they saw that even the business people or the merchants or the farmers, they were all actively participate during the first civil disobedience movement, but it was not successful. So when the second time Gandhiji relaunched the civil disobedience movement, the people were not happy to participate in the movement. And there were so many clashes also. Even if the Muslims come near to Congress, then Hindus used to go away. Hindu Mahasabha used to go away. If the workers come closer to Congress, then the business, the owners, the entrepreneurs used to go away. So always there was a intense tussle in Congress itself, how to join them, how to bring them back together, all these people. So Gandhiji again, so participation of the people was very less. Poor peasants, they were forced to similar problems such as rich peasants. They were unable to give the revenue, but it was not given, there was no freedom from that. So the people were unwilling to participate. Even the business community or even the workers, they were all unwilling to participate in the second time when this movement was relaunched. Women were important part of the revolution. Large scale participation of women can be seen. Many of them were picketed for liquor shops and they were actively participating in the movement. Salt manufacturing, they were in front of Gandhiji. Protest marches were held by women. Even went to jail, began to see service to nation as a sacred duty by the women. The limits of civil disobedience movement. Dalits. Gandhiji opposed all forms of untouchability, you know that. Dalits, even Gandhiji called them the Harijan. Gandhiji was the first person to call them Harijan. So, Harijan means the people of Hari. Hari means God. Called them Harijan, dignified their work, importance was given there. Then what happened? Normally the Sanatanis used to go away from the party. So these were all limits of problem. Then Muslims and Hindus, I already told. So these were the problems of Indian nationalist problems. Now we are going to see the last part, the sense of collective belonging. Everywhere we can see that there is a sense of collective belonging. In Europe also we had seen that even the National Assembly was renamed, and even that they were different flags or the statues were erected, language were given priorities. In India also we can see that there was some ideas, sense of collective belonging, how they have created. The very first one that Indian history, fiction, folklore, songs, symbols all had an important part in creating the nationalism. Folklore and folk music, you know that even the so-called the local people, what they sing, and they used to sing it during even the harvest festival or even their plantation. Sometime they used to sing the folklore, folk music. Even the villages people, even now they are using. The thing is that it is not a written form; it is only oral. They are called folklore and folk music. Even Indian history, then they have created hymns in the name of nation. Hymn. What do you mean by hymn? Deshbhakti, bhajan. Actually, hymn means bhajan. The hymns were created in the name of nation. That means for the nation. Kabir Lalai, you might have heard about Kabir Lalai. This type of songs were created, or you might have heard about Vande Mataram. All these things are the songs created in praise of the motherland. Then history they have reinterpreted. Reinterpreted means our old history was something different than the present one. That was the intention of reinterpreting the history. Our glorious past were on visualized again to show the youth we were so grand economy in India. So these were all techniques to create the sense of collective belonging. Images and the symbols were used. Images of Bharat Mata was used, just like Germany, already we had seen Germania, Italy, Italia, France, Saint Marine. All these figures were used to create the sense of national belonging. In India, we had a statue of Bharat Mata. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay created this, and again reintroduced images of Bharat Mata. Then the flag of tricolor flag was introduced. Gandhiji introduced a three-color flag. Symbols like flags and lotus were used in order to create the sense of collective ideas. Folklore, even in the Tamil there was Nadesh Shastri created the folklore of southern India. So these type of activities were undertaken by the different leaders in India, created the sense of collective belonging. So this is the nutshell of the lesson nationalism in India. The rest I will be giving you in the notes. So thank you, students. Read the lesson thoroughly again and again, and prepare your own question answers and objective type questions. So thank you.